Hi viewers, this is Swamy, Assistant Professor of Zoology. Today our topic is digestion of cellulose. Under this topic we discuss introduction to digestion of cellulose, structure of cellulose, symbiosis of animals and the microorganisms which synthesize cellulase and they digest cellulose, digestion of cellulose in termites, digestion of cellulose in mammals, and we discuss briefly about ruminants, Hindgut fermenters, pseudo ruminants, and finally the mechanism of action of microorganisms and the cellulose digestion. All herbivores feed upon plants and their derivatives like leaves, fruits and vegetables. The rich component of all these food items is the cellulose. Cellulose is a structural polysaccharide where all the glucose components they bound with each other through beta 1,4 glycosidic bonds. Beta 1,4 glycosidic bonds. Here we will see the beta 1,4 glycosidic bonds where this is one glucose molecule, this is another glucose molecule. Here we will start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th carbon and this is the 6th carbon. And here it is 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. Here 1, 4, first carbon of one glucose molecule and 4th carbon of another glucose molecule, they bound together by beta 1,4 glycosidic bonds. This beta 1,4 glycosidic bond may be digested by a special kind of enzyme which is known as the cellulase. Cellulose is the food item substrate, whereas the cellulase is the enzyme which cleave beta 1,4 glycosidic bond in between glucose molecules of a cellulose polysaccharide. Right? In the animals, there is no cellulase. Synthesis of cellulase is absent, so that they are unable to digest the cellulose. But the researchers revealed that mainly bacteria, protists, and some of the fungi they synthesize the cellulase and they are able to digest the cellulose. Many herbivores they utilize microorganisms for their digestion of cellulose, and there is a establishment of the symbiosis in between the bacteria, symbiotic bacteria and the organisms which are feeding upon the cellulose. So both the organisms, the herbivorous animals and their respective symbiotic organisms, both of them they are showing they are getting mutually benefited and thereby they establish a symbiotic relation. That is, the animals provide, the herbivorous animals they provide food and shelter to the microorganisms. In turn, these microorganisms they synthesize cellulase and they help in the digestion of cellulose. Apart from the digestion of cellulose, we will see the digestion of cellulose in termites. What are the termites? They are the invertebrates, belongs to the phylum Arthropoda and class Insecta. Here we will see there is a symbiosis in between termites and the trichonympha. Termite, it is a white ant which feeds upon the wood and wooden furniture and the wooden material. By eating all these wooden, they may cause great loss and great damage to the equipment, and they feed upon the cellulose, but they are unable to synthesize cellulase enzyme. Now, trichonympha, it is a flagellate protozoan. It lives in the stomach of the termites and it synthesizes, secretes the cellulase enzyme, and thereby the cellulose which is present in the stomach of the termites get digested off. and the digested cellulose get absorbed by the midgut of the organisms. So here we will see the these are the trichonympha and this is the termite. So this is the entire digested food material get absorbed into the midgut of the termite. And here there are of about 100 species of bacteria are present. They are also helpful along with the trichonympha protozoans. This is the digestion of cellulose in the termites. Now come to the digestion of cellulose in mammals. How the mammals they digest their food material which is in the form of cellulose. They have certain adaptations. The mammals, herbivore mammals, they have certain adaptations. First one is the long alimentary canal. Long alimentary canal is facilitates, that is the nutrients they should be stored for longer times. During this storage period, there is every possibility to digest the food material in an efficient manner, and that is the digested food effectively absorbed into the alimentary canal. So that is the usage of the long alimentary canal. Coming to the second one, fermentation chambers like rumen and the caecum. Here the symbiotic microorganisms which can produce the cellulase, they live in the special kind of chambers like rumen and the caecum, and thereby they habituate to live in these chambers and they secrete the cellulase. Let us see some of the symbiotic organisms which are living in the digestive system, alimentary canal of the various herbivorous mammals. There are symbiotic bacteria, symbiotic protozoans and symbiotic fungi, that is rumen bacteria, rumen protozoans and rumen fungi. Apart from the rumen bacteria, here we are seeing Fibrobacter succinogens, Ruminococcus albus, Ruminococcus fluvifaciens, Butyri vibrio fibrisolvens, Ruminobacter amylophilus, Methanobacterium formicium, Methanomicrobium mobile. And apart from the rumen protozoans, we will see Epidinium echaudatum, Dasytricha ruminatium, Eudiplodinium maggi. These are the rumen protozoans. Whereas rumen fungi, they are Aneromyces species and the Scillomyces species. All of them they live in the alimentary canal of the herbivorous mammal and they are responsible for the digestion of the cellulose by secreting cellulase enzyme. Based upon the location of the digestion of cellulose taking place, that is the mammals, they are categorized into three groups. Apart from these three, they are namely ruminants, Hindgut fermenters and the pseudo-ruminants. Apart from the ruminants, here the term ruminant has been derived from the Latin ruminare. Ruminare means regurgitating or remasticating the food material. Here the organisms like deers, antelopes, cattle, sheep, goats, camel and llama, all these mammals they have a special chamber in their stomach that is known as a rumen. This is meant for the fermentation of cellulose. Fermentation of cellulose. All these organisms they eat the planty food material and again they take back the food material into the mouth and remasticate it thoroughly and again they will re-swallow the food material. This process is known as the rumination. Regurgitation or remastication, or in the terminology of physiology it is rumination. Those animals which exhibit the rumination are the ruminants. These are known as the ruminants. In the stomach of ruminants, we will find out 4 chambers, namely rumen, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. Rumen, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. Out of all these four, abomasum is the real chamber of the digestive system, stomach. Remaining three, that is rumen, reticulum and omasum, these all are the swellings or protrusions of the esophagus. Swellings or protrusions of the esophagus. The abomasum is the real chamber which belongs to the stomach. Let us see the structure of the stomach of the ruminant. Here it is, rumen, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. These are the four chambers. Out of these four, this is the real portion of the stomach, and remaining three, rumen, reticulum and omasum, are the protrusions or swellings of the alimentary canal, we can say. Then come to the digestion of cellulose in the ruminants like the cattle. Here we are observing the four chambers, rumen, okay, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. Right? How the food material transports from one place to another place, let us see. First of all, the food material which is ingested into the mouth, that mixed up with the saliva within the mouth, and that being formed into the bolus, small clump-like structure, bolus. These boluses were swallowed into the esophagus and that reaches the rumen first. Right? In the rumen, the stuff muscles of the rumen walls, they churn the entire food material, they mix thoroughly the food material, and the microorganisms which are present in the rumen, they start the digestion. The large food particles like the parts of the plants, they float on the surface of the rumen fluid and they enter into the reticulum. They enter into the reticulum. Right? And the microorganisms which are present in the reticulum, they digest cellulose partially. This partially digested food formed into cuds. That formed into cuds, small clumps, cuds. These cuds again sent back to the mouth. Again sent back to the mouth. Right? In the mouth, it undergo remastication or reguttering, and after the appropriate mastication, that sent into, swallowed into, from mouth to directly omasum. This time it never enters into the rumen again. After the remastication, it enters into the omasum. And again it is thoroughly mixed with the movements of the walls of the stomach or omasum, and these mixed food that enters into the true stomach, that is the abomasum. Now here from the abomasum it enters into the small intestine, and here it undergo digestion in the presence of various enzymes, and thereby the ingested food completely digested and absorbed into the walls of the small intestine, and undigested food that enter into the large intestine and that will be ejected out, that underwent egestion. So this is the process how the ruminants, they swallow the food material and re-swallow the food material after remastication, and the complete digestion takes place in the small intestine. Complete digestion and absorption of the digested food takes place in small intestine. Undigested food that exit outside, ejected out through the anus. Okay, this is about the digestion of cellulose in the ruminants. Then come to the second kind of mammals, Hindgut fermenters. In some of the mammals, the cellulose not at all digested in the rumen because of the lack of the rumen in the stomach, so that the cellulose digestion takes place in the caecum or in the colon of large intestine. Due to the absence of the rumen, the cellulose digestion takes place in some of the mammals either in the caecum or in the colon of the large intestine. There the cellulose undergo fermentation. These kind of organisms are commonly known as Hindgut fermenters. And in these animals, the microorganisms, they may live either in the caecum or in the large intestine, and they help in the digestion of the cellulose. And due to the absence of the rumen, they are unable to remasticate the food material, so that due to this process there is no appropriate digestion of the cellulose like that of in the ruminants. The best examples are horse and the donkey. In these animals, the caecum looks like a projection and it is attached at a particular side of the alimentary canal, and this facilitates the reverse peristalsis, that is the intestine that capture the food for the second time. The food enters into the intestine for the second time also. This phenomenon is known as the intestinal reflux. And thereby, due to this intestinal reflux or reverse peristalsis, the cellulose undergo the digestion for second time and again reabsorbed. Right? Then here it is the digestive system of the horse. Here only we will see the stomach, only one chamber. Okay, here it is the caecum and here it is the large intestine. Then if you compare the digestive system of Hindgut fermenters and as well as the ruminants, in the ruminants we will see 4 chambers, and in all the regions the absorption and digestion takes place. But here only one chamber. The digestion of cellulose takes place in the caecum and as well as the colon regions. This we should remember. And in the herbivorous animals like the rabbits, they exhibit a special kind of mechanism which is known as the caprophagy. That is, the undigested food along with the nutrients that will be ejected outside the body in the form of the fecal matter, and the fecal matter which is rich source of the nutrients which has not been absorbed into the small intestine, they will be re-swallowed by the organism. So the habit of feeding of fecal matter is known as the caprophagy. This is commonly seen in the rabbit. Come to the pseudo-ruminants. The best example for the pseudo-ruminants are the pigs, hippopotamus. Now, in this, the stomach divided into many chambers, and they have microorganisms in the first chamber, but they are unable to remasticate the food material. They never reget the food material, so that the cellulose may not be digested for the second time. Right? Because of due to the absence of the rumination, they are unable to digest the cellulose for the second time. This is about the pseudo-ruminants. And finally, the mechanism of action of microbes and the digestion of cellulose. So what happens basically is, here there are the microbes in the rumen and the reticulum. They meant for the digestion by producing the cellulase enzymes. Thereby the plant products like the cellulose, pectin, hemicellulose, sugars, they undergo the enzymatic activity, catalytic activity of the cellulase, and they modified into glucose. this glucose, some amount of the glucose, it is utilized for the energy for the microbes, and remaining amount get fermented. They get fermented. So some of these that produces lactic acid by the anaerobic respiration, and here remaining amount get fermented and tend to form short chain fatty acids and the acetic acid, propionic acid, butyric acid and valeric acid. And from all these food sources there will be a release of energy which is needed by the microorganisms. And finally, the fermentation of glucose that leads to the formation of carbon dioxide and methane like gases, they will be expelled out through the exhaled gases or through the during the process of belching. They will released outside, so that the organisms which secrete the cellulase, they digest not only the cellulose but they digest the hemicellulose, xylon, sugars, pectin and so on, right. This is the mechanism of action of microorganisms by producing cellulose, and that will help in the cellulase, production of cellulase, and that help in the digestion of cellulose. One more thing about the digestion of the cellulose in human beings, that is, in the alimentary canal of human beings there is no cellulase, so that the cellulose may not be digested by the human beings. But we will take various kinds of vegetables and thereby they have rich source of cellulose. It is never digested and that will be sent out as it easily. And the fiber which we will eat, that facilitates the free movement of the food material in the alimentary canal, and it inhibits the constipation. And the fiber which is present in our day-to-day food, that never allows to store the excretory material in the colon, otherwise in the large intestine, thereby it protects ourselves from the colon cancer. Although there are many microorganisms in our alimentary canal, they may not be as useful as to that of the herbivores, but the symbiotic bacteria of human digestive system, they synthesize and produce the essential vitamins like K vitamin and the B12 vitamin and the B complex vitamins and so on, so that the humans cannot digest the cellulose, unable to digest